All right, for today's dissection, we're going to be working on opening up the underside of our oral cavity. So we really want to be able to visualize our air tubes and our feeding tubes, the trachea and the esophagus. And then we're going to come down and we're going to open up the thoracic cavity. And we really want to make sure that we're staying in the thoracic cavity. So if you take your finger and just palpate your pig, right down the midline here, you can feel it's very strong, very hard sternum or breastplate, which covers the heart. We will have to cut past that so that we can visualize the heart and the lungs. And then just continue to palpate. And as you come down, you're going to notice that right around here, that hard feeling disappears. That's the end of the breastbone, right? Then your ribs are also attached to that breastbone. You can feel the ribs if you just kind of give your pig a little squeeze. So palpate down the midline of your pig, find where that breastbone stops, and then you can follow that line of the ribs down one side and down the other. Right, that's where we want to stay today. We really don't want to expose the abdominal cavity. That's for our last day. Right, so very carefully, we're going to start to cut through those muscles that we were looking at the other day. And again, it's good to use just superficial cuts because right underneath, you're going to find, more muscle, of course, because we've got, our deeper muscles. But we don't want to cut through any of our organs. So you want to be really careful here. Right. Cut all the way down. Again, just using these superficial cuts. Right. All the way down to where we feel that breastbone stop. Right about here. And then we're going to start to cut away, following that line of the rib cage. Okay, so really what I'm exposing here, these are a lot of those really deep muscles that are right outside the rib cage. Right, so I'm just sort of getting through that top layer of muscle. Right, here's a big muscle that we're just going to bisect. This is a good time to sort of relax your pig's arms. Let him just sort of chill. Right, there you go. Okay. So we haven't quite gotten through all of our muscles yet, so we're going to need to go a little bit deeper, but you want to be careful as you do. We don't want to cut through heart, lung. Those are the big organs that we're trying to visualize today. Right, now once you have this done, it might be just a little bit easier, and feel free to call me over if you need some help with this, but if you use your dissection scissors, sort of feel under that breastbone. So I'm right where we stopped the cut, and I'm going to sort of dig that tip in, but then I'm going to pull up, right? I'm not going to kind of cut down because then I'll be cutting through the stuff that I really want to see. So I'm going to pull up, okay? And you're going to see, since we're opening up a body cavity now, those preservative juices that our pigs were in, they're probably going to come flowing out. So remember what we said about discarding those fluids. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm just sort of cutting around the central portion of that rib cage. Okay. And then you can do the same thing, right? But make sure that when you put that point in, pull up, right? Really get that tension on there, and that's going to prevent you from cutting through important stuff underneath, like the lung. So you can actually already see your pig's left lung. All right, so this is the left lung that we're exposing here. All right, and again, you can see a lot of those preservative fluids that sort of filled this thoracic body cavity. We can dispose of those just using our paper towels. right, if it bothers you. Right, so here we have the left part of our pig's thoracic cavity open. You can take your blunt probe and you can visualize the different lobes of the left lung. Okay, so this is our lung, and then the lung is actually surrounding inside this see-through sac here. You've got your heart, so you can actually already visualize the left atrium, the left ventricle here. And then you've got this gland sitting right on top of your heart, very big gland. This is the thymus gland. Okay, so you'll want to continue, all right, and open up again the neck cavity up here. These are just some muscles that I'm clearing away. All right, and feel free to use, whichever tools you're most confident with. And we really want to try to expose the trachea and the esophagus. You may run into the top of your rib cage here, so I'm sort of running into a hard piece right here. That's just the top of my rib cage. All right. All right, so this big guy right here, and he's still a little hidden by some overlying muscles that help to work him out, but this is the larynx, right? Sort of the topmost part of our windpipe. This is also referred to as the voice box, okay? So if you follow that down, you will find our windpipe, which has cartilaginous rings sort of protecting it. Right, so you'll sort of see a striated pattern on that trachea, right, because it's got cartilaginous rings that help hold that open, because it's our airway. We don't want our airway to collapse, right? And then if you look right behind the trachea, you'll find another large flat tube. Okay, large flat tube, and this is your esophagus. That's the food tube. So it lies just dorsal to that trachea. So larynx, trachea, and just behind that we have our esophagus. Okay, so you sort of have to dig him out using your blunt probe. You don't want to use those needle probes, they'll tear it up. All right, so you can continue by removing, this portion of your rib cage. If you want to, so that you can visualize the right half of your thoracic cavity, you'll do the same thing to remove the rib cage over here. Again, just try not to go into that abdominal cavity. And if you're successful, you'll see this really large flat muscle right here. This is the diaphragm. This is what helps inflate and deflate our lungs, right? Big, large. It actually forms the boundary between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. So you don't want to cut through that diaphragm today.